Well, apparently, if you signed up for Ashley Madison, you got about 99% fake chicks. So, hooray! If you signed up for Ashley Madison, then you probably never actually talked to a real live human being. That's unfortunate, but we're kind of used to not talking to real people these days. Anyway, this is Digital Drive. I'm your host Russell. We're talking about technology and quite a bit more. It's a wonderful day here in the Chattanooga area. It's only about 79 degrees. And we're expecting it to stay actually about that throughout the rest of the day. So that's pretty awesome. I have karate class coming up soon today. So I'm really happy about that, actually, because that means that temperatures are only going to be in the upper mid 70s by the time I'm in class. So that's great because the dojo that I go to tends to not have air conditioning that works. It's very, very traditional. Not by choice. So if I go to this dojo that I always go to, hopefully the temperatures will be down by that time, so I don't have to deal with the blistering heat because I hate sweating in my gi. So it's horrible. But anyway, there's new analysis that's showing apparently that if you were on Ashley Madison, then you probably only talked to a fake girl. So when Ashley Madison hacks, according to Extreme Tech. When the Ashley Madison hacks hit earlier this month, it didn't take long for researchers to sort through all of that information. Impact Team, the group behind the hack, declared that it was releasing the information because Ashley Madison had actually lied about the male-female account ratio on its website. At the time, the hackers claimed that it was about 90 to 95% of accounts on Ashley Madison that were male, with thousands of fake female profiles. New research shows that this may have been a drastic underestimation, not an overestimation, but an underestimation. Wow. Gizmodo's Anna Lee Lewis combed through the database looking for telltale signs that the 5.5 million female accounts on Ashley Madison were fake. Sure enough, she actually did find some, including some IP addresses that showed accounts were created from 127.0.0.1, which would mean an internal server on a local area network, not a server on a remote server. So long story short, basically that means that they were actually creating the accounts in-house. It's technical. Anyway, that turns out that it was about 5.5% of them were actually on 127.0.0.1 on ashleymadison.com. And they also had ashleymadison.com email addresses as their primary contact point. These email addresses were even listed in sequential bot-like fashion, such as 100 at ashleymadison.com, and then 101 at ashleymadison.com, and then 200 at ashleymadison.com, etc. One critical piece of information captured in the leak was the last date that a user had checked their messages. If a user never checks their inbox, a field is completely blank. If they logged in even once, that information is recorded. Ashley Madison also records the last time a user answered messages. This can be handled in a separate field without actually clicking on the inbox, which is why the data logs show different numbers for the women who check mail versus replying to a message. In both cases, however, the numbers are staggeringly low, which is kind of odd. So females mostly responded to, well, nothing. They didn't actually respond to much of anything, whereas males, on the other hand, messaged quite a lot. They have a little handy chart that Extreme Tech put together, which shows that males on Ashley Madison replied about 20 million times, a little over 20 million times, whereas females checked their messages about 1,492 times. So, yeah, not a whole lot of female stuff going on there. Over 20 million male customers had checked their Ashley Madison email boxes at least once. The number of females that checked their inboxes stands at 1,492, which is not really surprising because Ashley Madison doesn't really appeal to the female audience. You could see that, I mean, from the outset, really, because who wants to be on Ashley Madison if you're a woman? That's why. So there have already been multiple class action lawsuits filed against Ashley Madison and its parent company, Avid Life Media, but these findings could send the figures skyrocketing. If true, it means that just 0.0073% of Ashley Madison users were actually women, and that changes the fundamental nature of the website. So it was dudes talking to dudes. Ew. So Ashley Madison was not selling the ability to have an affair of any sane definition of the word. So basically selling something that wasn't existing. It was fraud, essentially. It might not be morality of the cheating on one's spouse that brings a house down, but actually the perils of false advertising. So false advertising could ultimately bring down Avid Life Media. Now, is that a bad thing? No, actually. If you're advertising falsely, then you have no reason to exist really in the marketplace. So it's things like this. It's hacks like these that end up showing the really the ludicrousness of Ashley Madison when it comes right down to it, because there turned out to not be much of any females on the site at all. In fact, you had an extremely low chance of ever talking to a female on Ashley Madison. Wow. Meaning that you almost, in fact, you may have had a better chance of getting struck by lightning than actually talking to a real live female on Ashley Madison. Now, that's not a very good odd. Right there, not very good odds for the female population of Ashley Madison, I have to say. And it makes you wonder then, if you were a real female in Ashley Madison, you must have felt quite left out, because most of the men on there would be talking to bots. So go figure. Well, changing the subject a little bit, I was thinking about ICBMs not too long ago, and that sounds kind of odd. Why would one think about ICBMs for any reason whatsoever? Well, I can inform you why. I was thinking about ICBMs, just the realisticness of them being used. ICBM, by the way, is an intercontinental ballistic missile. In case you didn't know, I mean, chances are you were around in the 80s, so you probably had heard about ICBMs at least at one point during your tenure on this earth. I know I've heard about them, and I wasn't even around during the Cold War. I came on just the end of the Cold War. Actually, the Cold War had been over for about 4 years by the time I was born. But anyway, I was thinking about the likelihood of an ICBM being used, and actually, come to think of it, ICBMs are really inefficient when it comes right down to it, because an ICBM, again, intercontinental ballistic missile, essentially has to be launched from it's a rocket. I mean, it's a rocket that they repurpose to go to space. So ICBMs are usually launched from really just things that are the size of the Statue of Liberty. So you have this thing the size of Lady Liberty flying at your country, and it seems like it'd be pretty easy to detect that, actually. So that's the nature of an ICBM. It's extremely easy to detect. So the likelihood of an ICBM being used against any country, especially the United States, is extremely unlikely, simply because of the ease of detection. So anyone who is smart enough to build an ICBM would also be smart enough to know that radar technology nowadays would spot one super easily. So the likelihood of one actually getting through would be extremely low, especially nowadays. So plus it has to enter in from space, which is really, really easy to spot as well. So the likelihood of an ICBM being used against the United States is extremely, extremely low. Now, why am I talking about this? Well, the reason is simple, actually, because I keep hearing all these people worried about nukes, and it doesn't really make any sense to me that people are worried about nukes, because if you look at the numbers and you think about the practicality of it, the usage of nuclear weapons is extremely unlikely to happen. I mean, extremely. You have to also consider that suitcase nukes don't actually exist. That's sort of a theoretical situation that was made up by the Defense Department. Suitcase nukes do not actually exist. That's something that was thrown around for a long time. The media loves to jump on the suitcase nuke thing, but no, suitcase nukes do not actually exist. They are a theoretical situation, and a radioactive material that would actually fit in a suitcase of that size would irradiate the person who is holding it and everything around that person, and it would be easily detected by any sort of first world country. So a suitcase nuke is pretty much out of the question. Plus, a nuclear bomb requires a conventional explosive that's quite large in order to spread radioactive material. So a suitcase nuke really wouldn't have the right amount of explosive materials to spread that. So yeah, a suitcase nuke is sort of out of the question. The smallest known nuclear device and highest yield smallest known nuclear device was built actually by the United States. So go figure. And it was in the 80s or so that was built. So people are worried about suitcase nukes and nuclear bombs being used. Really, it's highly inefficient and highly unlikely to happen against any country. And nuclear bombs are really not that much of a threat, oddly enough. Funnily enough, nuclear bombs are not something that I'm worried about at all. The big threat would be I guess a cyber attack of some sort. That's really the big thing. So many people are worried about such boogeymen like the nuclear bomb. The bomb is not really anything that we have to worry about at this time. The closest we've ever come to actually being nuked was actually by our own government when they dropped a nuclear bomb by accident in North Carolina. So go figure. So we haven't been nuked. We probably won't be nuked unless it's done by our own government by accident. So the likelihood of a foreign nuke actually detonating in the United States is extremely low. I mean, incredibly low. There's like next to no chance of that happening, fortunately, unless someone really drops the bomb, or the ball, I should say. Unless someone really drops the ball on missile defense, which is also kind of unlikely. So yeah, but then again, planes have done stranger things too. So I don't know, go figure. Well, T-Mobile is really upset about you using your unlimited data. How dare you use your unlimited data? T-Mobile is promising to eliminate customers who abuse unlimited data. Now, unlimited kind of means unlimited, right? Like without limits, as in there's no limit at all. That would be the meaning of unlimited, correct? Well, T-Mobile has a bit of a different idea of what unlimited means. Ars Technica has a story. T-Mobile US is planning to take unlimited data plans away from customers who use workarounds to bypass limits on tethering. Customers who buy unlimited high-speed data for smartphones are also given up to 7 gigabytes a month for tethering, which lets a phone act as a Wi-Fi hotspot for other devices such as laptops. But some customers are masking their tethering activity and using as much as 2 terabytes a month, T-Mobile says. Now, tethering, by the way, is when you connect your laptop to your phone and use the phone as your access point for Wi-Fi or internet access anyway. So T-Mobile CEO promised to eliminate anyone who abuses the network, they say. In a blog post, he wrote that T-Mobile will be going after every thief, and I'm starting with the 3,000 users who know exactly what they are doing. Those users will be contacted today. They won't necessarily be eliminated from T-Mobile's network, but they will lose access to unlimited data plans if they don't change their ways, he says. In an FAQ, frequently asked questions, T-Mobile said that it has developed technology that can detect people who deliberately choose to break our terms and conditions. Initially, customers will be warned, but if they keep violating the conditions, they will be moved to a limited plan. Those limited plans are then automatically throttled once customers reach their high-speed data limits. The limited plans are cheaper if you use 5 gigabytes or less per month, but customers can pay extra if they choose to have more high-speed data. Now, if you're wondering, here's what you can do to avoid this happening to you. If you tether your phone to your computer, so you're using your phone now as your main method of getting internet to your laptop, you might want to reconsider actually and start using your home network or free public Wi-Fi at Publix or Starbucks or whatever, because tethering it to your phone and then using that as your main access point is actually going to run up your costs pretty quickly if you have a limited plan. And if you have an unlimited plan with T-Mobile, they're going to come after you if you do that. So be careful. T-Mobile likes to jump on you if you have an unlimited plan and you start to abuse it. At least they're going to start jumping on you, I should say. Laguerre also wrote that the customers could eventually have a negative effect on the experience of honest T-Mobile customers, meaning that it could put a strain on T-Mobile's network, which could ultimately bring speeds down for everybody. T-Mobile already had measures in place to prevent heavy users of unlimited data from impacting other customers. Unlimited data customers who use more than 21 gigabytes in a monthly billing cycle are throttled for the rest of the month in times and at locations where the competing customer demands for network resources, according to T-Mobile. Now, fortunately, I have a home network, and really that's not a problem for me because my home network doesn't have a cap. But some of us, again, have a cap on how much we can download, and that starts to get really obnoxious too. I hope that that whole idea of putting a cap on your network speed is eventually thrown out the window, because it seems like nowadays, when we have the whole thing with, fiber optic networks, and we have seemingly unlimited amounts of information that can be shipped across the pipes, so to speak, the tubes perhaps, then really worrying about data caps shouldn't really be a thing. It seems like a ploy to charge more money, but then again, companies can do that if companies wish. You've been hearing about Tesla. Tesla, I should say, is actually striking a deal to buy up lithium hydroxide, which is going to be mined in northern Mexico, not in China. Very interesting. On Friday, Tesla struck a deal with a mining company that's called Bacanora Minerals Ltd. And Rare Earth Minerals PLC to purchase lithium compounds from a proposed mining site in northern Mexico. Now, of course, lithium is used to create lithium-ion batteries, which are used to power the Tesla electric cars. So it makes sense that they'd be making this deal. The mine is not yet functional, and the deal requires the mining companies to raise funding to construct a mine, as well as processing facilities over the next 2 years. But as a supply contract published by Bacanora states, the companies project, I should say, that once the mine is up and running, it'll be able to supply 35,000 tons of lithium compounds, namely lithium hydroxide and lithium carbonate, per year. 35,000 tons of lithium per year at first, eventually expanding to 50,000 tons a year. Tesla has agreed to purchase a minimum amount of lithium hydroxide from Bacanora Minerals and Rare Earth Minerals for 5 years after the mine becomes operational, with the potential to extend the agreement. In exchange, the mining companies will then sell their mine materials to Tesla at below market rate, the Wall Street Journal is reporting. So this means that Tesla can accrue this lithium ion, or rather this lithium, I should say, hydroxide and carbonate domestically instead of in a foreign country such as China. So this is good news for us on the domestic side. This could really put a pretty big stimulus on the economy, actually, that doesn't come from the feds. Who'd have thought, right, that we would get a stimulus in the economy that doesn't actually come from the feds? That's kind of a strange idea, actually, that we would actually stimulate the economy ourselves without the help of the federal government. It's almost like we don't need cash for clunkers or something. What an odd idea. Well, there are many good uses for drones. One bad use for drones, though, is mounting pepper spray on it and tasers, like the North Dakota cops are wanting to do. So that's a bad usage of drones. A good usage of drones, though, is using it to take photography, as an example, using it to map a location, as another example, using it to fight fires, as yet another example. Sky Aerial Services is a company that we're familiar with here at Hot News Talk Radio. And over there, they use drones for taking photos. So drone photography is a big thing at Sky Aerial Services. If you want to take photos or have photos taken with a drone, then certainly that would be awesome. And you can have that done with Sky Aerial Services, where you can have photos taken. So that's with a drone too. So it makes things very interesting. It really gives you an interesting perspective on your property too. So drone photography is a great thing. Unfortunately, people are using drones in kind of a negative way. A hobby drone flew within 50 feet of an LAPD helicopter, which then derailed a suspect search. In the latest chapter of the Los Angeles Police Department's ongoing saga with unmanned aerial devices, a hobby drone derailed an LAPD helicopter this week while the police aircraft was attempting to locate a suspect in Hollywood, which does give kind of an interesting idea that you could potentially intentionally use a drone to stop a helicopter from chasing you, which would be kind of interesting to see if anyone actually tries to do that. Or let's say theoretically, there's a police chase going on after a bank robbery, and they're using a helicopter to map your location. So then all you would have to do is fly a drone up there to get in the flight path of the helicopter and get in its way, and then the helicopter would have to call off the search. Or at least they would think they have to call off the search. I don't know if they actually would have to call off the search, but they think they do. So ABC 7 over in LA said that the drone came within 50 feet of the LAPD vehicle, being the helicopter in this case, redirecting the police's attention towards finding the amateur operator. So they're easily distracted over there at the LAPD. Eventually, authorities said that they found the drone pilot in a Rite Aid parking lot. The man was then taken into custody for interfering with police work, and the LAPD confiscated the drone, so they stole his stuff. Authorities did not release the drone pilot's name, but the man was questioned by police and is going to be facing further scrutiny. The FAA will reportedly question him as well, and a forensics lab will examine the video captured by the drones to determine whether this encounter was on purpose, because it could very well have been by accident, although you'd have to be a really bad drone operator to accidentally fly into a helicopter. LAPD, I should say, pilot Sergeant George Gonzalez said that it's very hazardous. It could kill everybody on board the aircraft and anybody you hit on the ground. These aircrafts are just under 5,000 pounds and carry up to 143 gallons of jet fuel. Almost exactly 1 year ago, the LAPD made headlines for coming out harshly against another drone operator, Daniel Salmon, who was 42, and he'd been arrested for filming police on the ground, so instead he took to the skies with his drone. The LAPD then confronted Salmon outside of his Hollywood station, telling him that he was trespassing for using a drone to capture footage of the station's parking lot. Cops ordered him to stop, but the incident was posted to YouTube and was immortalized forever. Inevitably, as drones are becoming more accessible for everyday individuals, incidents of them encountering authorities, intentional or not, will continue to spring up. And so we're seeing interesting ideas of drones being used to surveil the cops, which is another positive usage of drones, because if the police can be surveilled by the populace, maybe they'll be less likely to, abuse the citizenry. So, of course, surveillance of the cops is a good thing, but try not to interfere with police business, because you can get yourself shot for doing that, unfortunately. This is Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. We are everywhere. Listen live to Hot News Talk Radio at hotnewstalkradio.com. Tune into the TuneIn Radio app on your smartphone and then search for Hot News Talk Radio. Hot News Talk Radio is also on Twitter, where you report the world decides. That's AM 1240. Hot News Talk Radio. And be sure to keep it tuned here because we're going to be giving you weather updates and traffic updates and all the other news updates you could ever want right here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. Clutch with Keon Rose is coming up in about 40 minutes here on Hot News Talk Radio. He's our resident sports expert. At least I think he's a sports expert. I don't know anything about sports, so he could know nothing about sports, and he could be totally wrong about it, and I would have no idea. But I think he's really good at sports, so keep it tuned here. This is Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, and, of course, hotnewstalkradio.com.
This is a mob mode. This is the mob mode. What kind of fool do you think I am?
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Sky Aerial Services uses advanced drone technology to give you a better perspective and depth of your property and project. We offer aerial photography and video for your business, farm, home, or advertising campaigns, as well as editing services to complete the experience. Call us at 423-521-0284 and see how we can help you tell your story about your business, property, or project. We work with real estate professionals, both commercial and residential, developers, engineer inspectors, surveyors, ad agencies, auto and boat dealers, mapping services, insurance inspectors, corporate marketing, charity events, weddings, and photographers. Our consultation is free. Call 423-521-0284. That's 423-521-0284, or visit our website, skyaerialservices.com. Sky Aerial Services. The sky is our limit.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection: loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
This is America Now with Meghan McCain.
Al Gore running is crazy. You're flying around in your private jet all over the world, and you want average Americans to care about the environment. Don't you think you should be doing your part as well?
Meghan McCain, weekdays at 7 p.m.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hi, I'm David Tulis, inviting you to make the move with me 9 to 11 a.m. weekdays here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. The David Tulis Show, featuring Nooganomics.com for Chattanooga and beyond. 9 to 11 a.m. weekdays.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pat O'Neill. Arraignment today for Shannon Miles, accused of killing a Harris County, Texas deputy at a gas station Friday. Elizabeth Mancera at a prayer walk for Darren Goforth last night.
There's just a lot of hate out there. It's unfortunate, but we just have to come together and love one another. There's enough war out there.
Goforth was a 10-year veteran on the force. The White House is said to be considering sanctions against Chinese companies guilty of cyber theft.
The Washington Post reports a decision on following through with the sanctions has not yet been made, but could be made within the next 2 weeks. Officials tell the paper Chinese hackers have stolen everything from nuclear power plant designs, the search engine source code.
Fox Radio's Jared Alpern. Jurors hearing closing arguments in the case of a white supremacist charged with killing 3 people at 2 Jewish sites in Kansas. Fraser Miller tossed out of the court today by the judge for causing a disturbance. Fox News, we report, you decide.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Well, as you may have heard, very helpfully, actually, CBS pointed it out. The U.S., or rather, I should say, Fox News pointed it out. Fox News Radio, Fox Radio News, Fox News on the radio, whatever. The U.S. is actually developing sanctions against China over cyber thefts. So is this a good idea? Is it actually going to help out at all? I don't know, because again, we're making the assumption that this is led by the Chinese government, which may be correct, but it is still an assumption. We, at least in the people here, the populace here, we don't know that for sure. Maybe some higher up official in the U.S. government knows this, but we don't. This is Hot News Talk Radio, and this is Digital Drive. I'm your host, Russell. We're talking about technology and quite a bit more right here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. It is a beautiful day today. I'm really excited to get out and play. Actually, yeah, I just made that Arthur rhyme. Thanks. No, I actually have karate class later on today, and I'm so happy that temperatures are going down. I'm the worst Southerner of all time, basically, because I hate hot weather so much. In fact, I don't even like summer that much. So I'm the worst Southerner of all time because I do not like summer and I do not like hot weather, and I don't like I don't like most things. I'm very selective in what I like. Even when it comes down to music, because I like man, what do I like when it comes to music? I like shoegaze and vaporwave, and I like I don't know, like post rock and post punk, and I think Fugazi, I don't know, is pretty good. So I'm really selective in what I like. One of the things I know I don't like, of course, is governments, states. I don't like those very much. So it's sort of bittersweet on the one hand, because I think it's funny when the U.S. government gets hacked, and on the other hand, it's being potentially hacked by another state. So I don't know, it's sort of a trade-off. The president's administration, that's a toughie, isn't it? The president's administration is developing a package of unprecedented economic sanctions against Chinese companies and individuals who have benefited from the government's cyber theft of valuable U.S. trade secrets. Now, again, we're not necessarily talking about secrets as in governmental secrets. Now we're talking about source code for search engines, as Fox News pointed out. We're talking about we're talking about potentially companies' secrets, trade secrets, as it says. So that's what we're potentially dealing with, is trade secrets being stolen. So that's not so good. I like companies and I don't like governments, because I see no reason really to have governments most of the time. The U.S. government has not yet decided whether or not to issue these sanctions, but a final call is expected quite soon, perhaps even within the next 2 weeks, according to several administration officials who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss internal deliberations, according to the Washington Post. Issuing sanctions would represent a significant expansion in the administration's public response to the rising wave of cyber economic espionage initiated by Chinese hackers, who officials say have stolen everything from nuclear power plant designs to search engine source code to confidential negotiating positions of energy companies. So any sanction would also come at a particularly sensitive moment between the world's two biggest economies. President Xi Jinping, I think is how you pronounce it. I'm really, really bad at Asian names, by the way, so you'll have to pardon me if you yourself speak Mandarin or Cantonese. I'm very bad at it. But the president of China, anyway, is due to arrive next month in Washington for his first state visit, I should say, complete with a 21-gun salute on the south lawn of the White House and an elaborate state dinner. Sounds pretty cool, right? There's already tension over a host of other issues, including maritime skirmishes in the South China Sea and China's efforts to devalue its currency in the face of recent stock market plunges. At the same time, the two countries have deep trade ties, and the administration has sometimes been wary of being too tough on China. But the possibility of sanctions is close to the president of China's visit, and it indicates how frustrated U.S. officials have become over the persistent cyber plundering, because we're stuck in a situation where it's sort of like the lawyer's kid, where the lawyer's kid in school is the guy who you could never really pick on because he was the lawyer's kid. He'd sue your dad, or at least that's what we were led to believe. And so that's sort of what we have in China, where you don't really want to pick on China because he's the lawyer's kid. And so you don't really want to do anything to China because China's dad will come in and beat you up, or at least China will come in and beat you up. You really don't want to mess with China, especially economically at this point. So the sanctions would actually mark the first use of an order signed by the president in April, establishing the authority to freeze financial and property assets of and bar commercial transactions with individuals and entities overseas which engage in destructive attacks or commercial espionage in cyberspace. Now, that's, of course, all done without a fair trial, without rule of law, without any sort of jury of peers, without any of that. So overstepping of bounds, perhaps. The White House declined to comment on specific sanctions, but a senior administration official, speaking generally, said, as the president said when signing the executive order enabling the use of economic sanctions against malicious cyber actors, That's a mouthful. The administration is pursuing a comprehensive strategy to confront such actors. That strategy includes diplomatic engagement, trade policy tools, law enforcement mechanisms, and imposing sanctions on individuals or entities which engage in significant malicious cyber-enabled activities, yada, yada, yada. So basically what we have here is China is messing with us, or at least people in China are messing with us. We can't really do much of anything about it, and anything we try to do about it will really not be effective at all. So there's not anything that can be done really about this cyber espionage, short of going in with a CIA wet team and shooting people, but that would lead to an even bigger debacle. And the last thing we want to do right now is make China mad, because we kind of actually need China. That's the sad part. We actually, the way things are set up today, actually kind of need China to produce basically everything. The clothes you're wearing were probably made in China, despite a label saying that they weren't. They were probably made in either China or India. Still, China is a huge manufacturer of everything. Your smartphone was probably made in China. Do you have an iPhone? Made in China. Do you have a Motorola, like I do? Made in China. So do you have a ThinkPad for your laptop? Made in China. Do you have a ThinkCenter for your desktop computer? Made in China. You start to get the point. Making China mad is not really the best in our best interest right now. In fact, it would only hurt our economy. So these sanctions might not actually be a good idea, but we'll leave that one up to you. This is Digital Drive here on Hot News Talk Radio. I'm your host, Russell. We're talking about technology and quite a bit more. And something I hate is the NSA. Now, that should come as no surprise, especially if you've heard the show before. You know I really don't like the NSA. I don't like anyone who works for the NSA. I don't like anyone who's a contractor for the NSA, except for Edward Snowden, obviously. I really just don't like government entities in general. I don't like the CIA, never have, never will. I don't like the FBI, never have, never will. I don't like the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Energy, all these different departments, the Department of Natural Resources. I don't like anything at all to do with governments, not just the U.S. government. I'm not biased. I don't like anything to do with any government at all, because I see them as useless and oppressive and really just getting in the way of progress. So that's my take on government, I guess, in case you were wondering. Rand Paul, now again, I'm not in favor of anyone for president, because I think the best option would be to have no president, period. But Rand Paul is posing in front of NSA data centers that he's pledging to shut down, which is kind of funny. On Saturday, presidential hopeful and Senator Rand Paul made an unusual campaign stop, wearing his usual shades and his messy curly hair. Rand Paul posed with arms crossed in front of a controversial Utah data center that belongs to the NSA. Alongside the photo he posted on Facebook, Rand Paul made a bold campaign pledge saying to essentially tear that center down. So the new Berlin Wall is the NSA data center, I suppose. He says, "I'm on my way to the airport, but we decided to stop by the NSA facility in Utah." The caption on Paul's Facebook page says, "When I become president," that's a pretty hopeful statement, "when I become president, we'll convert it into a constitutional center to study the Fourth Amendment. Bulk data collection must end." Now, that's a nice sentiment on the side of Rand Paul. Sure, that's a nice little sentiment. The problem is the president doesn't really have the power to do that, for one. Also, Rand Paul becoming president is actually kind of unlikely at this point, unfortunately. Now, again, I don't like the idea of anyone being the president, because presidents really just tend to mess everything up. When's the last time we had a president who you actually liked? Yeah, I mean, presidents don't really do much of anything. We shouldn't have them in the first place. There's a lot of debate, by the way, about presidents back during the founding days here in our country. There were quite a few people who did not want to have presidents at all, and I tend to I concur with them. I would say that they were actually right about not wanting a president, because it seems that putting that much power in the hands of one person is a bad idea, and actually kind of goes against the whole ideas of democracy anyway. Of course, democracy doesn't particularly work either if you're in the minority, because if you're in the minority, then you've essentially lost. So 49% of the people can be alienated due to popular vote, and that doesn't seem quite right, really. So it's not a fair system at all. Democracy doesn't really actually work that much. Most of the time, democracy is kind of a failed concept, but most political concepts are kind of failed concepts, so go figure. You see, I'm kind of unique in my political views, because I don't like democracy. I definitely don't like communism. I don't like socialism. I really don't like any sort of political ideology that requires any sort of unified structure, because that's just going to lead to oppression of people and collapse, inevitably. Collapse, of course, being a good thing, but that's what leads up to it is death, and death is not good. War is also definitely not good, so I'd prefer to forego the whole process of having government, but that's just me. So Senator Paul already succeeded in pushing to end bulk collection of telephone data, a practice that was famously revealed in 2013 by Edward Snowden, who still is in exile in Russia, by the way. Well, the remedy to that program came in a legislative reform bill that didn't actually work very well. It was attacked from several angles. One of the lawsuits challenging it was launched by Mr. Paul, or Senator Paul, I should say, who called it a clear and continuing violation of the Fourth Amendment. He would be right about that. His Republican competition, including Jeb Bush and Chris Christie, have openly said that they actually want to expand NSA spying, which further proves that the Republican Party is kind of a joke, actually. You see, it seems like both parties want to expand NSA spying in some way or another. I don't know what Trump's stance on that is, because I haven't read a whole lot into what Trump's stance on much of anything is. Granted, he's probably going to be the next president, but I haven't really read a whole lot into what Trump has to say about much of anything. But I know that Jeb Bush is in favor of NSA spying, and I know that Chris Christie is in favor of NSA spying, which is not surprising because he's probably into the wiretap business anyway, being from New Jersey and probably affiliated with the mafia, who isn't in New Jersey anyway. So it's, I don't know, it's just, the Republican Party is such a joke to me, because people who claim to be conservative keep going for the Republican Party, saying, oh, the Republican candidate's going to do this or that. When has a Republican candidate ever done anything positive, for one, that's not very different at all from the Democratic candidate? I mean, think about it. John Kerry and George Bush were not that different, and George Bush and, say, Al Gore were not that different in a lot of different policies. It was just main talking points that they would talk about, and even the talking points that they would talk about didn't solve any problems. They just solved minor problems within the bigger problem. Like, say you have Rick Santorum, who proposes to get rid of the IRS. Well, that's all well and good. That's fine and dandy, but what do you replace it with? Right? I mean, probably something that's even worse. Even so, that's assuming the president has power to abolish the IRS, which the president does not. So that's really kind of a ridiculous and ludicrous claim that's only meant to garner votes. It's stupid. But then again, presidential candidates tend to be. In fact, the whole idea of a president is kind of stupid, actually. This is Digital Drive here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. We are everywhere. Listen live to Hot News Talk Radio at hotnewstalkradio.com. You can download the TuneIn Radio app and then search for Hot News Talk Radio. Hot News Talk Radio is on Twitter, where you report the world decides. That's AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. You can save half off now. Go to hotnewstalkradio.com and click on the half off link for great deals. Hot News Talk Radio is saving you money. That's AM 1240. Hot News Talk Radio. It's a wonderful, about 80 degrees right now in the Chattanooga area. And fortunately, we're not expecting much, if any, rain today, which is good, because today's a good day to go out and have your lunch break downtown, maybe go to Coolidge, walk across the Walnut Street Bridge. It's always a good day for that anyway. That's the thing about the Walnut Street Bridge in Chattanooga, is it's always good weather to walk across it. I mean, you can have 50-mile-per-hour winds. I would still walk across the bridge. You can have snow and sleet and hail. I would still walk across the bridge. I don't know what it is with it, but it's always interesting and fun to walk across the Walnut Street Bridge. I don't know what it is with it, because I've lived here all my life. I mean, how old am I? 20-something. And I've walked across the Walnut Street Bridge thousands, millions of times perhaps, and it's still, I always want to do it. I don't know what it is with the Walnut Street Bridge. It's just, you always want to walk across it. There's just something about it. Have you noticed those repeaters that they have, though, on the Walnut Street Bridge? If you walk along the bridge, you'll see these little, like, antenna things mounted on the poles. It's kind of weird. I'm not entirely sure what they are exactly. I'll have to ask some questions about that, but it's kind of bizarre, actually. I remember when they were installing it, and it wasn't that long ago, so I don't know what it actually is, but I don't know. We'll find out eventually. This is Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, and check us out on the TuneIn Radio app, by the way. If you get the TuneIn Radio app, then you can actually listen to us on your smartphone, which is a wonderful way to listen to us, because you can do it pretty much anywhere in the world. It harkens back to the days of the transistor radio, where you had kids who were listening to the AM on their transistor radio at the beach or something, the classic scene from the 50s. And it harkens back to those days, because now you can replace the transistor radio with a phone, and you can listen to us over your phone speaker. You can listen to us with headphones. You can Bluetooth into your car radio. It's a great way to listen. And I do it pretty much all the time, all day, every day. I'm on TuneIn. So it's a great way to listen to us, and I would definitely recommend you try that. The TuneIn Radio app for your smartphone. You can actually do it on an iPhone, Android phone, a Windows phone, even a BlackBerry has a TuneIn Radio app. So there's really not any excuse to not use a TuneIn Radio app. Again, it's wonderful, about 81 or so degrees right now in the Chattanooga area, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of the day today. So I hope you have a good one. And it's about lunch break. So if you're listening on your lunch break, I would recommend you check out Delia's if you're just now heading out. Delia's is a really good Mexican restaurant that's out there in Saudi Daisy. So if you're wondering where to eat, look up Delia's on your phone and check that out because it's really, really good, actually. I've been there many, many times, and I never get sick of it. So Delia's is a great place to go. I say Google because that's what I'm segueing into. It's a clever little thing, a segue. We do it in radio all the time. If you pay attention, you can notice it. Segueing into this story about Google and OnHub. Our Seneca did a review of OnHub, and it's interesting to say the least. It's sort of a mirror of a technology that Amazon has already been putting out, Amazon's Echo. Now, if you're familiar with Amazon's Echo, then I don't need to tell you about it, but in case you aren't, I will. Amazon's Echo is a cool little device that is probably spying on you if you have one. What it does is it looks like a tiny little trash can, a waste paper basket perhaps, that you would set on your desk or your coffee table or whatever in your house, and it will shop for you. If you ask it to, it'll give you little things. It's kind of like Google Now on your smartphone if you have an Android phone. Basically, it's exactly the same thing. Well, Google is coming out with a competitor to the Amazon Echo called the Google OnHub. So Google's OnHub is actually still kind of a mystery, according to Ars Technica. Google shipped them a box, which is actually a cylinder, and you're paying about $200 for it. It's actually kind of a Wi-Fi router, but that's not an unheard of sum of money, $200 for a Wi-Fi router. It's dual band, 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, yada, yada. Google's branding conventions give Ars Technica some insight into its plans. It's called OnHub, but the smartphone app is actually called Google On. Also, the underside of the OnHub, there's a label that reads, built for Google On. Oh, so that starts to make a little bit of sense. It could be that the OnHub that Google is putting out is actually meant to be a hub, literally, for your smart home. Now things start to make sense. So if you have Google branded, say, on Google On or on Google or whatever this Google smart home branding is going to be, light bulbs, you can control them from the Google OnHub. That starts to make things a little bit more interesting. Say you have Google speakers that'll eventually come out. Then you can turn on your Google Play Music with the Google OnHub, all sorts of cool things. So it's interesting how that works out. And this could potentially be a really cool product, actually. I'm imagining it being sort of a home version of the OK Google thing, where I'll give you an example of that. OK Google, play Mega Drive. And if you wait about 4 hours, it'll actually do it for you. But it's a cool little topic. There we go. Play Mega Drive. It's a cool little technology that you can use. Say if you're wanting to play music, then you can just say play Mega Drive, or there it goes, or play whatever you want, and it'll eventually start playing it. So imagine having that in your house without having to hold up a smartphone. You can say, okay, Google or Google OnHub or whatever, play this or that, play Tchaikovsky, play Chopin, play some sort of music, and it'll start playing it automatically. That's just one example, but you could also set it to set reminders, be your alarm clock, all sorts of different things. That's kind of what Apple is wanting to do, or Apple. That's kind of what Google is wanting to do. And if Google can pull it off, hey, great. But it's a little bit up in the air if Google can actually pull it off. Smart home technology, oddly enough, isn't really very popular right now, by the way it's playing. So Google technology is popular, but smart home technology really isn't. So why is that? Well, I think because it asks the people to radically change our way of living, right? If you have a smart home, then if it's prepackaged for you, it's simple. But most of us don't have a new house. We have an older house that we bought a few years ago, or you've inherited your parents' house or whatever. We don't want to upgrade the stuff that's in our house totally and completely, because that would mean changing all the light bulbs. That would mean changing the wiring. That would mean changing all these different things about how we live our lives. Now, if Google can make the smart home modular, they may have touched on something. The Google OnHub could be a window into that universe where we have modular things, like a modular Google lamp that you buy for $50 that'll turn on and off, that's also a speaker, all these different things. And of course, it's a Wi-Fi hub, this device you would buy, so the devices would just automatically connect to it and it'd be personalized to your profile and all these different things. Now, of course, there is a major problem with that. We're talking about a device which has a active microphone that's always listening, meaning that it's basically like bugging your own house, which you've already done if you have a smartphone anyway. I mean, we know the NSA can tap into phones, even if they're not turned on sometimes, to listen to the ambient noise going on. So that's not a new concept, but still, it's just adding one more device to the pile. It's throwing one more log onto the giant pyre of surveillance, you might say. So is it going to make a huge difference in our day-to-day lives? Maybe. Smart home technology is still kind of in its infancy. Amazon's trying it out. Google's trying it out. Apple is probably going to be trying it out. So we'll have to wait and see. I'm kind of excited about smart homes, but also kind of not. I could take any excuse to make my life more convenient, but I don't know. Something about it just seems kind of off-putting to me. It reminds me of that Simpsons episode where they actually got the smart home and it tried to kill Homer, and it was voiced by Pierce Brosnan. If you've seen that Simpsons episode, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you haven't seen that Simpsons episode, you're probably scratching your head, in which case you should go and watch that Simpsons episode. I don't remember the name of it, but it's still like it's off-putting. Really, the whole idea of a smart home is kind of off-putting to me, which is weird because I'm really into tech. On the one hand, I really want to have a smart home, but on the other hand, I'm kind of actually afraid of a smart home. Again, the concept of a smart home is sort of the concept of your smartphone. Smart home, smartphone. What a smart home is you walk in, and instead of saying, "Hi, honey," you say, "Okay, Google, set an alarm for 5 o'clock a.m. today." And Google goes, "Okay, setting an alarm for 5 o'clock a.m. You say, "Okay, Google, set the oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit." And it preheats your oven to 400 degrees. "Okay, Google, give me a step-by-step recipe for chicken casserole." And it gives you a step-by-step recipe. All these different things. It sounds very convenient, but on the other hand, it's also kind of, I don't know, there's just something kind of off-putting about it. Like, it's so convenient, it's so nice, but it's just kind of, I don't know. It's more of a window for different surveillance agencies or ad selling agencies to get a window into your house. And that really is the ultimate goal, is to be in control of every aspect of your life. And I don't really like that idea, oddly enough. Maybe that's sort of weird that I don't like that idea, but I really just don't like that idea. I'd prefer to be much more of my own self. I want to be me. I don't want to have to constantly live at the whim of some company or some government. I just want to do what I want to do without being bothered. Why can't we do that anymore? Why can't I just be me without being bothered by some agency telling me that I owe them money, or by some cop telling me that I can't walk on the side of the street at this time of day because there's a curfew in Ringgold? What the heck is that about? I'm not even young enough to be part of the curfew, but whatever. All these different things. And it's just, why can't I just do what I want to do? People should be able to be left alone. If you're not hurting anybody, you should be left alone. And that's my basic principle with kind of everything, is if you're not hurting anybody, who cares really? This is Digital Drive here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. We are absolutely everywhere. We are permeating every aspect of your day-to-day life. If you have a smart home, be sure to listen to us on your Amazon Echo or your Google On Hub or whatever. You can also get the TuneIn Radio app for your smartphone right here on Hot News Talk Radio on the TuneIn Radio app. All sorts of different ways to listen to us. Clutch with Keelan Rose is coming up next right here on Hot News Talk Radio. He's going to be talking about sports. He's our resident sports expert right here. Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, and the time right now is 12:54. Temperature's about 80 degrees. Beautiful day. Get out and play right here, Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240.
This is a mob mode. This is the mob mode.